Donald J. Trump, a man who needs no introduction, has never shied away from a fight. From the boardroom to the campaign trail, he has built a career on challenging the status quo. But nothing could have prepared him for the battle he faced as the 45th President of the United States, a battle against a shadowy, entrenched network of unelected officials he famously dubbed the Deep State. This Deep State, according to Trump and his supporters, operates behind the scenes, manipulating levers of power and undermining the will of the American people. Trump's claims of a deep state working against him resonated deeply with his base, many of whom felt increasingly alienated from a political system they viewed as rigged against them. They saw in Trump a champion, someone willing to take on the establishment and drain the swamp, as his campaign slogan famously promised. Trump's battle against the deep state was not merely rhetorical. He took concrete actions to dismantle what he saw as a threat to his presidency, and more broadly to American democracy. He launched investigations, fired officials deemed disloyal, and sought to expose the inner workings of this alleged shadow government. The battle lines were drawn, and the fight for the soul of America had begun. Central to Trump's battle against the deep state was his war on the federal bureaucracy. He viewed the vast network of government agencies and departments as a breeding ground for unelected officials who he believed were more interested in expanding their power than in serving the American people. His solution? Dismantle it. Trump came to office promising to drain the swamp, and he set about doing just that, much to the horror of the Washington establishment. He imposed hiring freezes, slashed regulations, and sought to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. The president's efforts to reshape the federal bureaucracy were met with fierce resistance from Democrats, career civil servants, and many within his own party. They argued that his actions were reckless, undermining decades of progress in building a professional and effective civil service. Undeterred by the criticism, Trump pressed on, emboldened by the support of his base and a Republican-controlled Congress. His goal, he argued, was not to destroy the federal government, but to make it work better for everyone. Trump's battle against the deep state was fueled by a potent mix of populist anger and technological disruption. His Make America Great Again movement, or MAGA, tapped into a deep well of resentment among working-class Americans who felt left behind by globalization and ignored by the political elite. Adding fuel to the fire were tech billionaires like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, who saw in Trump a kindred spirit, a disruptor willing to challenge the status quo. Musk's acquisition of Twitter, for example, gave Trump and his supporters a direct line to millions of users, allowing them to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and control their own narrative. The alliance between Trump's populist movement and Silicon Valley's tech elite was an unlikely one, but it proved to be a potent force. Together they formed a formidable force, one that would upend American politics and leave a lasting impact on the country's political landscape. The Trump administration aggressively targeted the intelligence community for transformation. Agencies like the FBI and CIA became focal points of Trump's efforts to root out the deep state and install loyalists. Kashyap Patel, a former aide to Congressman Devin Nunes, was a controversial figure tapped for key positions. Patel was known for challenging the Russia investigation and pursuing leaks. Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman, was appointed Director of National Intelligence. Gabbard, a critic of U.S. foreign policy, developed a rapport with Trump and his supporters. These appointments highlighted Trump's efforts to reshape the intelligence community. They underscored the deep distrust between the president and the intelligence agencies. This dynamic had profound consequences for American national security and foreign policy. Trump's claims of a deep state and his subsequent actions to confront it ignited a firestorm of controversy, particularly among Democrats and the mainstream media. They accused him of paranoia, of inventing conspiracies to deflect from his own failings, and of engaging in a dangerous assault on democratic institutions. Democrats, still reeling from their unexpected loss in the 2016 election, saw in Trump's deep state rhetoric a dangerous escalation of his attacks on the legitimacy of the government and the electoral process. The mainstream media, long a target of Trump's ire, became a primary antagonist in his battle against the deep state. He accused them of being complicit in the alleged conspiracy, of pushing a liberal agenda, and of deliberately misrepresenting his words and actions. The battle between Trump and his critics was not confined to the halls of power or the airwaves. It played out daily on social media, where accusations flew, conspiracy theories flourished, and the very nature of truth and reality was called into question. Trump's war on the deep state was not merely about personalities or even ideology. It represented a fundamental challenge to the very structure of American governance. His efforts to dismantle the administrative state, the vast network of federal agencies and departments that carry out the day-to-day functions of government, struck at the heart of a century of progressive reforms. The administrative state, as we know it today, emerged from the Progressive Era and the New Deal, periods of profound social and economic upheaval that led to a dramatic expansion of the federal government's role in American life. Trump and his supporters viewed the administrative state with deep suspicion, seeing it as a prime example of government overreach and regulatory overreach. They argued that it stifled innovation, hampered economic growth, and eroded individual liberty. Critics of Trump's approach argued that it represented a return to a bygone era, one in which corporations held sway over government and the interests of the wealthy and powerful trumped those of ordinary Americans. The battle over the administrative state was not merely a policy debate. It was a clash of worldviews, a fundamental disagreement about the role of government in society. It was a battle that would have far-reaching consequences for the future of American democracy. As Trump's battle against the deep state raged on, it became increasingly clear that it was more than just a political dispute. It was a symptom of a much deeper societal divide. The country seemed to be splitting into two separate realities, each with its own set of facts, values, and sources of information. On one side were Trump's supporters, many of whom felt ignored and left behind by the political establishment. They saw in Trump a champion, someone who spoke their language and promised to fight for their interests. On the other side were those who viewed Trump as a threat to American democracy, a demagogue who exploited fear and resentment for his own gain. The two sides seemed to be talking past each other, unable to find common ground or even agree on basic facts. Social media, rather than bridging the divide, often served to amplify it, creating echo chambers where people were only exposed to information that confirmed their existing biases. The deep state narrative, far from being a fringe conspiracy theory, became a powerful symbol of this growing divide. For Trump's critics, it was a dangerous and baseless conspiracy theory that undermined faith in democratic institutions. The reverberations of Trump's battle against the deep state were felt far beyond the borders of the United States. His rhetoric and actions had profound implications for America's relationships with its allies and adversaries alike, further complicating an already volatile geopolitical landscape. Trump's America First foreign policy, often seen as isolationist and unpredictable, created uncertainty and anxiety among traditional U.S. allies. His skepticism of multilateral institutions, his withdrawal from international agreements, and his penchant for unilateral action eroded trust and raised questions about America's commitment to global leadership. At the same time, Trump's confrontational approach to China, his attempts to renegotiate trade deals, and his withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal rattled nerves and raised the specter of conflict. His warm embrace of authoritarian leaders, his disdain for diplomacy, and his apparent disregard for human rights concerns further alienated allies and emboldened adversaries. The deep state narrative itself also had international repercussions. Trump's claims of a shadowy network working against him resonated with populist leaders around the world, who saw in it a justification for their own attacks on democratic institutions and independent media. Trump's presidency, with its focus on the deep state and its disruptive approach to foreign policy, left a lasting mark on the global stage. As America moves forward, the specter of Trump's battle against the deep state continues to loom large. His presidency, though now in the rearview mirror, has left an indelible mark on the nation's political landscape, raising profound questions about the balance of power, the role of government, and the very nature of truth in the digital age. The deep state, once a fringe conspiracy theory, has become a mainstream talking point, a rallying cry for those who feel disillusioned with the political establishment. The distrust in government, the media, and even expertise itself, which Trump so effectively exploited, shows no signs of abating. The battle over the administrative state, the vast network of federal agencies and departments that carry out the day-to-day functions of government, continues to rage. The future of American democracy hangs in the balance. The fight for the soul of America is far from over.